During the time of the Cold War, immense tension took place between the Soviet Union side and the U.S. Britain side. After the end of World War II in Europe on May 8, 1945, Berlin was divided into four sectors: the Americans, the British, the French in the west, and the Soviets in the east. In 1946, Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Britain, made one of his most famous speeches that involved an iron curtain that was to descend across the continent. This later surprised the U.S. and the British because it was precisely what occurred in Berlin after years of tension between the U.S., British, and the Soviets. In March 1947, U.S. President Harry Truman announced the Truman Doctrine, which was a policy that was supposed to stop Soviet Union expansion. A few months later, the Marshall Plan was instituted by the U.S. government and was supposed to aid Europe in its recovery after World War II by lending them billions of dollars, and was also an attempt to stop communism in its tracks. This only increased tension between America and the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was angered because the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan supported containment of communism and financially supported Germany, which to the Soviets appeared to be an undermining of their power. The blockade eventually ended, and on May 12, 1949, the Federal Republic of Germany, also known as West Germany, was founded. Between 1949 and 1960, the entire border between West and East Germany was closed except for in Berlin. Although there were pushes to open up interzone passes between East and West Germany, by 1957 no one could leave East Germany without permission, and control was stricter than ever. Nikita Khrushchev, the leader of the Soviet Union during the Cold War, had a secret plan to create a wall that would seal the border in Berlin, and by the morning of August 13, 1961, barbed wire and fencing was put up. This was eventually replaced with a series of walls containing gun positions and watchtowers. In the end, the wall was 96 miles long and had an average height of 11.8 feet. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was a 13-day political standoff between the Soviets and the U.S., where the Soviets threatened to send nuclear missiles to Cuba only 90 miles off of American soil, was the closest the Cold War ever got to actually going nuclear. After this event, President John F. Kennedy gave a speech alerting the American people that a nuclear attack on Cuba would require the U.S. to take measures, which instilled fear in the American people that nuclear war was a real possibility. The wall was heavily guarded and watched, and hundreds of people were killed trying to cross the border. After the initial wall was built, a second wall was formed in order to further prevent the success of escapees, and after the second wall, a third wall was created in 1965. The third wall was made out of concrete slabs and steel support, with a sewage system on top, making it very difficult to climb over. People tried to escape East Germany for both political and economical reasons, not to mention the overall better living conditions and multitude of opportunities in the West. Between 1962 and 1967, 229,000 people escaped to West Germany. Starting on September 3, 1971, with the Four-Power Agreement over Berlin, East and West Germany began creating ties and connections. The Four-Power Agreement, the Transit Agreement, and the Basic Treaty were all baby steps allowing people to cross the border, although only in case of emergency. In May of 1973, East and West Germany created formal diplomatic ties. On June 12, 1987, U.S. President Ronald Reagan gave a speech at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin that included his famous "tear down this wall" phrase and the possibility of ending the arms race. Over the following 2 years, the Soviet Union felt pressure from many countries who thought that communism was an unsuccessful totalitarian system that was responsible for the death of more than 100 million people and unlawful tyranny. Finally, on November 9, 1989, East Germany opened the border in Berlin and the tearing down of the wall commenced. The wall was an international symbol of communism, and it being torn down essentially marked the end of communist rule in Europe.